Well, hi everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and we managed to launch the show pretty much almost on time and with no technical errors. So we're just going to back up and start again from the beginning, see if we can get this wrong the way we normally do. Actually, turned out I had an interview. I just got off the phone with an interview with Wayne Allen Root, and so I had to get everything set up before I got there. So actually, it's probably not a bad idea. Yours truly has been a busy boy lately. I had plans to shoot a firewall this afternoon. I'd written it, I was ready to go, and then I got in here and I realized I got to say something about the CNN story. So I did, and so we shot two of them. And I've got the first one. I mean, we shot it like 2-3 hours ago. It's already laid out, and pictures pretty much cut. And I'm going to see if I can get. I'm not going to get it finished tonight, but I need to get it out there tomorrow while this story's still hot, because it is. It's just compelling evidence. James O'Keefe is a guy I am proud to know, and I think he's a true patriot. I think he's extremely brave, and I think he's very, very, very important. He's got a chance to interview him on the Hot Mic show today, and that was fun. But he's really doing amazing work out there. He's really changing society, and for the better. And I really do think they're in real trouble, because I hope to talk to Evan Sayed about this next week. It's one thing when your product is credibility, and that's what CNN's product is, presumably. It's one thing when people criticize you, and it's one thing when people argue with you, but when they're laughing at you, you're pretty much finished. My understanding was, as soon as the Van Jones video came out, that there were memes on the internet with nothing burger memes, like something in it. Yesterday I saw a hashtag for Twitter that says things more reliable than CNN. And if people are laughing, if you get to the point where you say CNN has journalistic integrity and people just burst out laughing, then you're pretty much done if you're CNN. And CNN, of course, can't. They don't. It's not even a question of they're not smart enough to back away or to stop digging. They just don't know how. They're literally compelled to do it. I haven't seen the questions for tonight. I'm going to have to do 3 again. So let me just see. I'm sure something will be about CNN. So let me have a look at those, because I really do need to get back to this. And I hate to make it another short show, but I'd rather do a short show than no show at all. And a short show for me is usually an hour at least, I would say. So let's see what we have here. Okay, looks like top of the list is our friend Cheryl Toomey, who says, let's see, I'll open this up some. Hey, Bill, even though I was the second highest rated question last week, it got caught in the Facebook quagmire and was never seen. Giving it another shot. Hope springs eternal. Okay. The death of Otto Warmbier has filled me with a powerless rage. I simply cannot get my mind around the sheer inhuman barbarism that the North Korean government exhibited in this situation. My question, Bill, if it makes it to the top 3, and it did, how much do you think the inactivity of the Obama administration contributed to this young man's death, and shouldn't we retaliate in any way? You're dealing with a situation here it's twofold dangerous and bad. You're dealing with people who are posing a credible threat for war, and you have some vulnerabilities in that area, which is primarily Seoul, South Korea, of our allies. And at the same time, you're dealing with a guy who's crazy. So the question becomes, if you're not able to deter him from using nuclear weapons, what possible leverage can you apply to a guy to save the life of one individual person? He doesn't care. That's obvious. The question is, what can we do about it? Well, Cheryl, we're sending 2 carrier battle groups to the South China Sea. They're going to be up on the Korean Peninsula, and this is designed to make Kim Jong-un think twice about launching nuclear missiles. And it's not like, I don't know where the leverage is. The Obama administration could have been reliably counted on to do anything that was against the interests of the common American citizen, certainly the common military person. Just forget it. No backup, no nothing. Just deafening silence from the White House. So yes, he could have done more. I don't know what Trump might have done, and I don't know what the retaliation is against this unless it's removing the regime. You've got no, as I said, you've got no leverage. What are you going to do? You're going to cut off trade with the guy? We don't trade with North Korea, and even if we did, they don't make anything. And are you going to threaten him with military action? And he's already been threatened with military action. He seems to be dead set on a course to invoke that military action. He may be, and please don't misinterpret this as sympathy for the lunatic, but it's possible that he is trapped now, that if he doesn't keep up the bluster about war with America, he will be deposed or executed by members of the generals in the North Korean military, or he's just believes his own propaganda. And I think that's probably the most likely case, because I see it everywhere. I see it from celebrities, movie stars, all of it. I don't know how you deal with a guy who's that, whack. I really don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about it than that, to be honest with you. It's a regime that starves its own people. I mean, not like leaves them hungry, starves them to death, in order to produce nuclear weapons. If you look at North Korea and the propaganda, and everything about it is just so primitive. It's so primitive. The propaganda is very base. The everything, the posturing, all of it. There's a TV channel out there, internet channel called Vice, and needless to say, I have some real problems with Vice in a lot of their stories. But before they started getting some airtime on terrestrial television stations, I watched some of their travel things, and two of them are just must-sees. One of them is a reporter from Vice goes to Liberia, which is just enough to make your hair curl. And the other story was when the I forget his name now, the guy who started Vice, he himself goes to North Korea via China. And there's so much about what he sees there, and so much about it is disturbing, but the one story that I thought was the most compelling, and which he had video for, was this. The North Koreans pick him up. Right? They have to stay in this hotel, obviously. And by the way, that Pyramid Hotel in the center of Pyongyang, which sat vacant for, 20 years, and they finally finished it just out of sheer embarrassment. That cost the lives of a lot of workers and families, because that money went into that thing. And that pyramidal hotel structure in downtown Pyongyang is, in fact, the ugliest building ever created. It's the ugliest building ever made. And anyway, so this guy who's the Vice guy is in the hotel, and they've got their handlers, and there's translators and all the rest. So they get in a bus, and the North Koreans drive these party of maybe four or five tourists, something like 4 hours, 5 hours, in a bus over terrible roads in order to go and see this dam. Because apparently it's a rather large dam, and they're going to take these Westerners 5 hours to show them something, that's constructed. But that's not the part that's interesting. The part that's interesting is, I can't remember if it was on the way there or on the way back, but as they're riding in the bus, after several hours on the bus, the North Korean handler said, is anybody hungry? And a lot of people said yes. He said, all right, why don't we just pull over the next place we find? Essentially, that's what he said. We'll just stop at the next restaurant we come to, and we'll get a bite to eat. So sure enough, up comes a restaurant, and the bus pulls in, and the Americans and the other Westerners get out and go inside this hotel, and the dining room looks like a badly made convention hall in America, but it's just one gigantic open room with essentially no lighting, no decor, nothing, just a bunch of tables in a big open room and a big mural on the back. And the part that was so interesting was that the table placements were set for 5 or 7 or however many people were in the group. In other words, this restaurant was prepared to serve precisely the numbers of Westerners on that bus. So that in itself tells you something really kind of appalling about that. But sometimes you get in these big political arguments and all this other stuff, and sometimes it's something very simple, very simple. And it was the look on this guy's face when he described the food. Now you got to understand, this is the best food that North Korea can produce. This is it. They are unveiling everything they've got to show the West just how prosperous and happy everybody is. And he's talking about having to eat this food, this some kind of meat or something. And he said, I can't tell you what it was. It was matter. It was simply matter, some kind of physical matter. I couldn't tell what it was. I couldn't tell what the texture. It was just physical matter. That's how bad it was. And I thought, this is the best that they've got. And once again, you come back to the same old tragic thought, right? Why is their situation so appalling? When just across the border, actual genuine relatives in many cases, brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and so on, are one of the most thriving economies in the world and have the highest speed internet and a tremendous buying power and so on. The respect of the world, and South Korea certainly earned it through a lot of hard work. Why? It's because of an idea, and this idea will not go away. And it's the same thing with Cuba. And Kim Jong-un and Kim Jong-il and Kim Il-sung, all of them, had enormous personal fortunes, had multiple, gold-plated limousines and all the marshmallows that little fat murderer can possibly want. And like Fidel Castro, who had, $800 million when he died in his personal bank account. This con game continues to go on. It's a sucker game, and there's 100 million suckers born every year, apparently. It's all about this idea. And this actually just occurred to me. But really, when you get right down to it, when you really think about what actually happens, is you have a communist takeover in North Korea, and you have just rank poverty. You have a communist takeover in Cuba, rank poverty, political oppression, people in camps, people, thin, driving 56 Studebakers and stuff because they couldn't get parts for anything else and so on. And you do the same thing in Russia, and you do the same thing in China, you do the same thing everywhere, and it's nothing but catastrophe. And you would think that this would be enough to get people to stop wanting to do it. And then I just realized, it's not an economic system. It's not supposed to work. It's not. Socialism is the fig leaf that tyrants use in order to take power. That's just what I realized just sitting here thinking about it just now. It's really it, right? They don't care about their people. If Kim Jong-un cared about his people, he'd spending money on feeding them and educating them rather than building nuclear weapons and nuclear capable submarines, and he wouldn't be covered in all of these riches and so on. If he cared about his people, that's what he would do. He doesn't care about the people. He cares about himself. So the whole socialist thing is basically, like I said, it's a fig leaf. Then basically what happens is you get a bunch of murderers and tyrants and people who want power, can't live without the power. And they come in and they say, we're gonna take over everything, and we're gonna do it in the name of the people. We're gonna turn the government and the means of production over to you. So they take power, and then that doesn't happen. And people keep buying it, and they buy it and buy it and buy it. They're buying it now. The Democrats are saying they want a socialist as the leader of their party. Nancy Pelosi apparently not left-wing enough for them. Okay. It's attractive to some people from America because people think that socialism is just capitalism with free stuff. They don't understand that it's antithetical to capitalism, and that if you adopt it, then everything you have is going to go away. They don't know that, most of them. But what's interesting is some people do know it, and they not only don't care that people are going to live worse. That's a feature for them, and not a bug. So most of these people that form governments like North Korea are people who are power grabbers, and they're just murderers, and they need the fig leaf of doing it for the proletariat. I love those words like proletariat and bourgeoisie and all of this. He's a Bukharinite and Trotskyist and all of this theory. Nothing to do with reality. I forget who told me this, but you can tell you're dealing with a leftist because if you show him a program that works, he'll say, yeah, it works in reality, but does it work in theory? And that's really it. But in addition to the people that use it just to steal power and gain power, and little petty, tyrants, and they're running the oblast, passport officers, who knows? Little people with little ambitions suddenly find themselves in a uniform with some power over people's lives, and they get very, very, very petty about things. But I realized also that there is another class of person, and that is, I'll just call it the true believer. I saw one of these at an event I did with Junior State of America. This was this woman was probably in her 60s or maybe early 70s, and she had the look of a hippie. She just hair wasn't washed or styled or anything, and just there. And I just, she started. I was telling her how hard it was to run a business and taking 50%. She was nodding. I said, "Oh, you think that's good?" She said, "Yeah, I think they should take more." I said, "Well, if they take more, we're not going to do it anymore. And if they keep doing this, then we're simply going to stop working, and then everybody's going to be poorer." And she was happy with that. She says, "I don't care. I don't care. I want everybody to be even. I want everybody to be equally poor," and that's what they'll get. So the short answer to your question, Cheryl, is I don't see anything that anybody could do to influence people that are this removed from reality, decency, humanity, any of it. I just don't see it. And by the way, when I did the question list last week, your question was not in the top 3 because I took it at a certain time, and if it got more votes than that afterwards, then I'm sorry, but I have to pick the list somewhere. So moving on here.